So the next session will be from Josh Bottum, and this is the Kubeflow user panel, which is very exciting. You can get started, Josh.
Hey, so welcome everyone. Today is, what is this, July 16th, and we have this user panel that we've put together to discuss Kubeflow and various deep dive further into maybe AutoML and training operator type of questions and usage and operating patterns that a few of the users from Kubeflow have agreed to speak about. So on this panel today, I'm going to act as the moderator, Josh Bottum. I work as a Kubeflow community product manager. I also work for Ricto in developer relations. But we will have speakers from Deloitte, as well as EBI, Coda, data science, Superior Data Science, and Maven Code. So what we'll do is we have a little agenda that we'll start. We'll have some introductions by the speakers, and I'll help moderate that. Then we'll ask some questions and then wrap up. And we do appreciate this being an interactive discussion. So if people have some questions, put them in the chat, and or if they're really burning, maybe you can break in. So why don't we start off with some introductions? I'm going to start with, as people show up on my screen here. And why don't we start with Mars? Why don't you introduce yourself first, if you would?
Yeah, and Josh, thanks for the invite. So my name is Mars.
Mars, I don't know. I can't hear you. I don't know if others can.
Yeah, maybe you just need to make the volume up.
All right, let's go to you, man.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Josh. I hope everyone can hear me. Is that correct?
Yep.
Perfect. So thanks for the passing the mic to me, Josh. Hey, everyone. My name is Umang. I am a data scientist / deep learning engineer. And what I've been doing is this, doing the deep learning, machine learning, and all these kind of use cases. I've authored a book on deep learning, which is going to be published soon by Wiley Publications. And I've also been doing some open source contributions earlier. I was one of the first open source contributors to Google Colab. Even before it was called Google Colab, it used to be called Google Data Lab at that time. I was an open source contributor to that. And I really enjoy doing it. It's my passion. And yeah, happy to speak with you today, all of you.
Fantastic. Thanks
Great.
for that introduction. Hey, David, you're next on my screen. I like your background. Would you introduce yourself, please?
All right. Hi, everybody. And Josh, thanks for the invitation. I'm glad that I got an opportunity to represent scientific community and sharing our experiences, how we use the Kubeflow for the scientific research. We started the journey since version 0.7, and we keep on using it. Now we have expanded into 4 teams at different stages using Kubeflow in various different ways. Yeah, hope that I can share some of what we've seen with everybody.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Mars, are you back online yet?
Am I? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. So I'm Forrest Mars with Coda 2. It's a research-oriented data collaboration platform that's mainly been focused on the ongoing pandemic and creating an end-to-end machine learning platform for highly agile experimentation and highly collaborative, so that any scientists that are working on this problem can collaborate, can share data sets, and can quickly build and test out models. And we've kind of settled on Kubeflow. We were doing a lot of roll our own stuff, and tried Kubeflow out originally. Wasn't sure that some of the team members were quickly taking to it. Seemed to have a bit of a learning curve, and we've come a bit full circle, and now we're heavily using it. It looks like it's going to be our go-to platform.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jobin, are you muted or can you okay, you're good.
I just unmuted. Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. Thanks everyone for listening as well. I am a data scientist with 6 years of experience. I worked on helicopters and vibration AI. I also worked directly in finance at Citigroup and various AI projects. I've been working with Docker forever, and also I represent Superior Data Science. But if you guys need any connections or like introductions or anything like that, just let me know. I think I can reach back out to the experiences that I do have. But anyway, it's really good meeting you guys.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jobin. And Charles, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. How's it going, everyone? Yeah, my name is Charles Adisloy. I work for Maven Code. So we build a lot of things around Kubeflow. I'm an MLOps engineer, so I lead the team out here. Basically helping companies productionalize their ML models, taking it from notebook to production. So we build a lot of applications around Kubeflow. One of the things we're doing right now is document AI, basically running documents through the Kubeflow pipeline, extracting things out of it using NLP and building entity graph and stuff like that. Then we'll write the results in a JSON format, in a structured format on the other side. So we're leveraging Kubeflow a lot. We have a lot of battle scars, playing with like all the Kubeflow components like Kubeflow pipeline, the Katib for hyperparameter tunings, and doing model serving with care serving on Kubeflow for all our models and inferencing procedures and stuff like that. So I look forward to like speaking with everyone today, learning from everyone and contributing to this talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
You bet.
So I'm going to circle back. I had provided the speakers with a set of questions to kind of walk through. And so the first question I have, I guess, Forrest, we'll start with you since you're, at least on my screen, you're furthest to the left. We'll put you on the spot first. You talked a little bit about the use cases. I was wondering if maybe you could dive a little bit more into kind of some of the use cases that you've seen and how you see those working on Kubeflow. Do you have something that you could bring out that would be top of mind that you could give a short update on?
Yeah, absolutely. And not the first time I've been accused
of
being...
Josh, sorry for interrupting you. By the way, how we will like take the notes, because this is very important, or we'll record and afterwards take the notes from the session?
Yeah, I wasn't planning to take notes, but if we want notes, and Andre, I know I had you on the panel too. So if you want to introduce yourself, go ahead.
It's fine. But I mean, I have already done it, but in any case, yeah.
Hopefully everyone knows who Andre is.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I mean, yes, come on.
It's fine, no worries. I'm Andre. I'm a software engineer in Cisco. I've been in Kubeflow from 2018, so almost from the start. And I contributed in the Katib framework, so especially we built the neural architecture search there. And in the meantime, I developed trainer operators in Kubeflow. I developed the CI/CD infrastructure, and I'm trying to support all the kind of the part of the Kubeflow that we have and interacting directly with our customers. Yeah, so we can move forward. I don't know about the notes. It is fine. Definitely, it's up to you. So I can try to take some notes, or we can just ask the questions to the panelists directly. It's fine.
I think it'll be hard for me to take notes. And
yeah, okay, it's fine. Just let's move forward.
Hopefully, you guys got some good transcription software. I mean, it's no, it's pretty good these days. Yeah, I mean, and you get a nicely formatted document. You know, it recognizes individual speakers. It's as long as you don't use too many like extremely technical words, which we may end up using today. It's usually pretty good, and it's super fast. So yeah, it shouldn't be a problem. So you know, we're trying to build a platform that's extremely highly notebook driven. But we're also it's highly visual. There's a lot of scientists sharing various plots and visualizations across. So that's part of what the platform does. And then another part of the platform is for anyone to be able to add data sources, and then those get pulled into a stage where another collaborator can do some sort of feature extraction, feature engineering on them. So a lot of this is outside of Kubeflow. We are using Katib for parameter tuning, and what we're doing is we're working towards a model of meta learning, which is not so much a buzzword as auto ML. I think is the sort of the bigger buzzword in the industry, and it's more of a semantic distinction of what the suggestion engine is doing, especially what statistics it's collecting and what it's using to define the next trial. So basically, it's just a higher level of intelligence. More on the auto ML side, we have been sort of having challenges, we should say, with running multi-node distributed training. So that's more on like a workflow integration pipeline side than the Katib side. And then more on the meta learning side using Katib. We're trying to combine hyperband and Bayesian optimization. And we have a really good reason for doing this. Is that hyperband is better than Bayesian alone, but you're still is always going to give you suboptimal solutions. But when you combine them, you can use Bayesian optimization to sample from a probabilistic model of your statistics rather than just sampling uniformly, random uniform sampling. So this has been a lot of time spent trying to figure out sort of how to do this with Katib and some experiments, and that's one of the main things we're really sort of focusing on with Katib is getting that set up and running, which we don't at all. Like we've got some sort of work towards it, but it's proving to be a bit of a challenge.
Okay. And I have just a quick follow-up question on that. So speaking about hyperband plus Bayesian optimization, is it algorithm like ACHA or any other sort of the algorithm? Because I think I saw some papers about it, how we can use the hyperband plus Bayesian optimization.
Yeah. So ACHA is on our radar. Okay. I think specifically one of the guys is playing with ACHA-T. Don't quote me on that. I think that's the one they're using. But yeah, I don't have visibility into like specifically the models. I'm trying to get more of the workflow set up so that we can use whatever models. And so far it's been a lot of work and to try to figure it out. So that's one of the reasons I was excited when Josh asked me to join the call, because he mentioned it was about Katib specifically. And that's like I said, we definitely have some stuff with integrating the pipeline and how we handle jobs, the upstream job and the pipeline. For example, for PyTorch, which it's using. We're trying. I mean, the whole thing is it's multi-paradigm. I mean, the goal is we're trying to build a multi-paradigm pipeline so that literally a data scientist that's very comfortable with TensorFlow can collaborate with someone that's using PyTorch in a highly agile way. So this is a research project that the company's running. So this is not a product with a highly defined pipeline, and it spits it out, and there's sort of like these, you have these iterations for product refinement. This is very raw, and a lot of times, there's a lot of manual work that we're trying to automate into a collaborative process.
Well, that's good input. I appreciate that, Forrest, and I think that we're getting visibility now from different users. And I think that perception, maybe we can dive into a little bit more. I'm going to ask David if he might give us kind of a similar update on maybe a little bit more deep into the kind of use cases that you're looking at, and maybe some of the ways, again, that you see either Katib or the training operators being used as you go forward with your.
And I should just interject real quickly, just to make sure it sort of gets in the notes. We're really excited, that Katib, is standalone, and that we're really excited to see Kubeflow be, really seriously componentized. So that it's not a giant beast that you're committing to. And I mean, I don't know. I guess I think it's probably obvious to a lot of people on the panel. But I think that is really the best direction to be going as Kubeflow users and as, members of an MLOps community, to get to, a kind of, an architecture that has more strictly defined API boundaries between, the component layers, as opposed to, deep dependencies. And I think it's pretty obvious, but I think it's, it's worth making sure that we include in the notes that's one of the most attractive things, that's, got us on Katib, and actually sort of brought us back from originally playing with early versions of Kubeflow when it felt like it was going to be a big, more of a commitment than we wanted to make.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I would like to echo the point that Forrest just bring it up, that Kubeflow has been really great, making quite a bit of improvements in the deployment aspect, that a lot of components can be deployed independently or together, working together very smoothly. So that really helped our users. Just to answer Josh's question, that yeah, I'm working for European Bioinformatics Institute. We are one of the largest institute in the bioinformatics research. We basically are storing and serving and processing the bioinformatic information, or the information related to biology, any information like the literature, DNA sequence, RNA sequence, protein 3D structures, and images, anything related, or any images, videos, anything related to animals, human beings, anything related to biology. So that we have a very diverse research community, and we have a lot of different requirements. The current 4 teams that are using Kubeflow are using for various different purposes. One of the earliest team that they're using Kubeflow is for the algorithm, developing the new algorithms. So they're really focusing on getting the models up, and so in that case, the single version of the Minikef is the best option for them, and they are really happy using it on Google Cloud Platform. And that's team number 1. And team number 2 is working on the organic chemistry, and they sort of still in the early stage of evaluating. I don't have whole lot of the details from them yet, but in the early evaluation, they give us really positive feedback saying that, yeah, this is a very comprehensive, cohesive platform that for machine learning. That's team number 2. And team number 3 is, they're sort of using it in a sort of quote unquote production stage. They have been using Kubeflow for processing the videos to track the behavior of a Japanese fish. And what they found out is that with Kubeflow on the cloud platform, it made their processing time reduced by 70%, and also the cost being reduced by nearly 80%. So they were really happy, and before they came to us, they were really concerning that they will not be able to get the data processed in time, which means that the scientific reputation of EBI will see negative impact on that. So that was a pretty good story and win for them. And the last one, but not least, they are quite unique. They're not doing machine learning at all. What they're using is that they're using Kubeflow platform and to process the phylogenetic trees in the most recent national project in UK, which is called the Tree of Life, a Darwin Tree of Life. The project was trying to process, to sequence all the organisms in British Isles, and then try to build all the sequence, try to understand all the different sequences, and build phylogenetic trees means that, okay, I've got to explain that. The trees, it means that build trees that to find, to connect the different species and see which one was likely evolved from which one. So to build a tree that the Darwin had a very famous tree of life in his groundbreaking book to establish how the organisms are connected to each other, how every organism has been evolved over time. So this is one very exciting project. They're using Kubeflow to process data, build this tree, and from the genetic perspective. And they're not doing machine learning at all, but they found that the Kubeflow is an excellent platform for this purpose.
Wow. Well, that's that's really
Just
cool.
by the way, can I add just a small point here? Because our Katib project is not can be only for ML. You can even like use a hyperparameter optimization for your any sort of the engineering work. You can just apply this sort of the orchestrator to improve your algorithms and improve your, I don't know, some mathematical algorithms. Because the optimization problem is not only for ML, right? If you start thinking about, well, yeah, this can also be a use case.
Yeah, that brings the comment I might have is that our message to the user community is always emphasizing that the Kubeflow is for machine learning. It's a comprehensive platform for machine learning, which is great, which should be the message. And but we probably could also emphasize that if you're not doing machine learning, don't look away. There are probably some very good capabilities in Kubeflow that it's very good for your own purposes. We looked at hard and deep in the Kubeflow, and we realized that there's nothing preventing us from using it for non-machine learning purposes, and we do find many good capabilities fitting our use cases nicely.
That's really cool.
Thank you, David. By the way, it is one question from Forrest about the time cost. So yeah, you spoke about like 70% and 80% of the time. What is? Can you give like more description about it? So it's like reducing time for what? How does it help?
David, did you see the question?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I made that comment. When we the comparison was that when we reduce the time by 70% was that we were comparing the using the Kubeflow platform as a platform as well as the early trials on the Google Colab, and the time to process a single video was reduced from 60 minutes to 20 minutes. And also we estimated cost when we use the Colab and compare with the platform, because the Kubeflow gives us a lot of flexibility to pick the best platform for the purpose. So we then we compare the actual cost we use with Kubeflow in our own deployment, and the cost was reduced by about almost 80%.
It's amazing.
So we use the better GPU for the purpose, and we use the better size of the virtual machine environments and cluster and configuration for the purpose. So the cost was significantly reduced.
Can we assume that was a fairly large scale sampling?
Yeah, it was a large scale sampling. Yes, that's right.
Honestly, it sounds like a great case study. I mean, if you're able to reduce both the time and the cost, at that level of magnitude, that's pretty great. I mean, oftentimes we're trading one for the other.
That's right. Yeah, oftentimes we're trading one for the other. And for research communities, that a lot of research projects live and die by grants. When your grant is gone and you don't have results, you're pretty much dead. So the cost is a very serious concern.
just to take that a step further, time cost, very important, quality, right? So if you're even getting better quality, and I know that I've seen studies on how Katib and some of the other tools are helping improve accuracy, whatever, that may be another big benefit, right? Is if you can get those three, how many times do you get those three together at the same time, right?
Right, and absolutely, I'd like to add to it. I think what Josh said, right, about quality and complexity, right, and as well as time. A lot of machine learning, deep learning models these days, right, they trade complexity, for speed. For example, edge-based use cases, right? Your mobile net. There is a model called from Google called Mobile Net, and it's very fast, but you basically trade off your complexity there. So I think that becomes a bigger challenge. And if people like David did, if that's possible, you are not also not losing quality. That's, I think, icing on the cake.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe you can give us a little bit more from a Deloitte perspective on use cases as well, and maybe some ideas on how those may relate into hyperparameter tuning, training operators, those type of use cases. Anything top of mind that you might want to dive into here?
Right. I think use cases pretty much that what I've seen so far is that, more on the ML ops sides of things, starting from the whole life cycle of a machine learning project. So you basically are trying to make an ML ops system using Kubeflow, starting from your data preprocessing till the model is deployed. And I feel that, and multiple use cases around object detection, object recognition, and NLP as well. So and even time series as well. So multiple sorts of problems that exist in the use cases. And I'd say that the bigger challenge that we were facing earlier, especially on cloud platforms, rather than setting it up on own. So a lot of the bigger cloud platforms, right, they have a very easy plug and play version of Kubeflow, right? You can just click on 2-3 buttons and your Kubeflow is up and running. Like GCP has it, and even I know all these cloud platforms have it, right? So I think setting up Kubeflow, just that's the first part, right? Getting the Kubeflow right with all the permissions. You have to give permissions for your Kubernetes, you have to give your permissions for your pods and all the infrastructure permissions, and then ultimately your Kubeflow instance starts to run on these cloud platforms, right? Setting that up was a huge problem for our team initially, right? Because you were having multiple sorts of issues, right? Sometimes your credentials were not there, sometimes your the permissions were not there. So that was a one challenge that on cloud platforms is what I've seen in the career so far. And apart from that, regarding AutoML hyperparameter tuning, so I think I really appreciate the work Katib, the product Katib, right? Katib is able to do that hyperparameter tuning and starting from your neural architecture search and your other sorts of thing. I truly believe that I'm my knowledge is coming from all the Kubeflow official guide. If some sort of visualization is also added to Katib, right? Like this TensorFlow, you got TensorBoard, right? So I'm not sure if you can integrate TensorBoard with Katib or not. But what I'm trying to say is that when your model or a neural architecture search is something like that happening, right? And if you could see something that on the exact process when the model training is happening or the search is happening, if you could see some plots live, right, in the real time, right, that would really help, right, to decide your directions, right? Maybe you don't want to do the whole search, right? Maybe that your model is going, something is happening in these parameters. So I think these visualizations in general, right, it doesn't matter you are doing NLP or computer vision, in general, if you're training a model, some sort of visualization would certainly help. That would be my humble opinion
Sorry,
on it.
Monk, to
Yeah.
interrupting you.
Yeah.
Can you please ask you to create an issue with this visualization? Because we discussed previously in the Deep New UI session about it, and really want to hear from our users, what is the plots are missing right now, and we can follow up with them to integrate them in the new UI, because we're currently working on the new UI and we want to integrate new plots which will be really useful to see how the hyperparameter tuning process are going, right? So
Sure,
that would be
sure.
great. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, sure. Definitely would do that, Andre. So, and I think, and this could be these plots kind of things, right? These could be your framework agnostic, like that, it could be part of the UI itself, that like Andre said, it could be part of the UI itself, or it could be even specific to a particular platform, right? For example, for TensorFlow, you got TensorBoard, right? So if there is some way of doing that kind of integration of TensorBoard, right, that would be really, really something that I would like to definitely have. So I think, yeah, those are my 2 cents on the kind of work we've been doing and, how these additions can be done.
That's great input and great insight. So let's see, Jobin, your
Yeah.
experience so far. I know you're starting, and so I brought people with different parts of the journey because one of the things that we have in Kubeflow is we have experts that have been doing it for years, and then we have people that are just starting, and they look at it differently. So, Jobin, maybe your opinions on some of the things you've seen so far after your experience in data science and now looking at Kubeflow.
Sure. So I'm coming from just pure Python, coding models using the pre-built classes, and whether that's a general adversarial model or going back to sklearn and using something like a Gaussian mixture model. So I'm like just trading off various models, trying to get a higher accuracy score compared to like validation score. And just the regular data science methodology. And this Kubeflow pipeline is allowing me to iterate much quicker than I would have done it writing manual Python code, which takes you forever. It takes you like to fully code that Python pipeline. And it'll use the CPU parallelized and all of that. It takes a while. Kubeflow, I'm running through bugs right now. I'm running through a few bugs, but the idea is telling me that you'll be able to iterate through each model very quickly. I ran that tutorial in about like 10 minutes. It was great. And I was like, I saw all the code that is necessary. It's TensorFlow code, working with tensors inside the graph, the DAG. It's great. What I'm more curious about is the actual consulting process where we go to a client and we offer them this great generalization ability that AI has for this cost saving thing, which is very efficient and high dimensional. And like just starting from the beginning and going all the way to the end. And they're like happy. There's a happy deliverable, and it's repeatable after that using this software. So that's what I'm like most curious about. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that lines up very good for Charles. Charles has got some experience in doing some fairly large projects in this space, but also may have some good opinions on.
Charles.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, sure. Thanks, thanks, Josh. Yeah, so I mean, just to key in on the hyperparameter tuning with Katib, it's one of the part of Kubeflow that we discovered last year, and it's been amazing. So I'll walk you through one of the use cases that we dealt with that was really very interesting. And with Katib was a lifesaver. So we process a lot of documents. Like one of our customers, they generate tons and tons of documents, and they want to do things like text summarization, extracting key entities out of these documents, doing like tagging, classifying the documents that come from all sources and stuff like that. So we decided from early on that we're going to leverage Kubernetes with Kubeflow to process all these workloads. We'll walk them through the entire process, what they need to do. And now we're going to do all these things, because one of the things that we're thinking about is like, we don't want to like go on a particular cloud infrastructure and be locked down to, let's say, Google, where you're running everything on Dataproc, or you're running all your workloads on EMR and stuff like that. So all our document processing will leverage things like Spark operators to like bring in the data. All these operators were driven by Kubeflow pipeline. Then one of the things, I don't know if anybody has done some work on NLP, is like sometimes if you have too much data, you overfit. So we have all these data sources coming in, and we need to train the models and select the best model. So one of the things we're trying to do is to select the best performing model, and we don't want to overtrain and overfit, so that when the document comes in, we're not picking up the right entities correctly and stuff like that. So we leverage Katib a lot for our model selection. So every time we run a training, Katib presents all the options for us, and we can quickly select the best performing model, quickly test it, and if it's working, we promote it. If not, then we'll just do multiple trainings again. But prior to Katib and all these things, the way we've been doing this is like you do multiple trainings. Sometimes you throw away the model. Everything is manually orchestrated. But the fact that you can train all these parallel models with like all the TensorFlow operators and Spark operators and wrap it up with Katib and do your model selection was really a huge lifesaver for us in terms of the time that we spend on all this kind of on all these iterations and stuff like that. So that's a big shout out to everyone working on Katib. It was really helpful. The other part of Katib that I would love to see improve over time is how to like tie this thing to KF7, so that if I train a model and I think that model meets the threshold, I can automatically just connect it and push it through KF7 to push it out to production, so that people can start testing it right away and stuff like that. So I don't think Katib is there right now, but I think other than that, it's a very great lifesaver for us in terms of selecting the best performing model whenever you're doing things like NLP, and basically being able to like visualize all the possible results as fast as possible. And it comes them to the customer because they know like, okay, we went through all this process. It's on a black box. They can see how many models we trained. As they bring in more data, if the data is queued, they can see the results that, okay, we brought in too many data. We're not sampling things well enough and stuff like that. So it's really helpful visualizing all the different paths and the possible results and how you set your the budgeting of the time and the resource and stuff like that. It's been really helpful for us on that side. The other thing that I would touch on that we've been using a lot, it's Spark. Spark on Kubernetes really is something that a lot of our customers are looking into right now. Main reasons like sometimes they're bringing in streaming job, or sometimes they want to run a beam processing job, or sometimes it's a batch process, and it's expensive bootstrapping all these cloud infrastructure just to like run a simple batch job. So I think a lot of them are buying into the fact that we can quickly run Docker containers as part of our job. I mean, for our jobs and all our long running jobs on Kubernetes, and we can leverage the Kubeflow pipeline. But right now we're making use of the resource DSL, so there's no native container support for Spark operators right now, where you can just create a component and just execute that component as part of the pipeline. So that's one thing that we're looking at doing on that side. And if we're able to like solve it, we'll probably collaborate with like any other companies working in this space. But for now, we're using the native YAML file, wrap it up as part of your resource DSL in Kubeflow pipeline, and we're executing that to run our Spark jobs and things like that.
I have just a quick follow-up question to Charles. So
Sure.
you were speaking about like the avoiding overfitting. Like, have you tried to use early stopping in production in your Katib environment?
Say that again.
Have you tried to use early stopping? Because early stopping can help you to actually not train the model which is overfit, which you mentioned. Like with the early stopping techniques, it can help you to tune only optimal hyperparameters.
No, we've not done that.
Okay.
I can look into that as well. Okay, cool. Can you explain it?
Yeah, sure. Because eventually early stopping is just the techniques in hyperparameter tuning to just simply not train your trials until the training is, because the most time-consuming time is training, right? In the hyperparameter tuning. Yeah. And
it's a double win.
Yes, and once like we know that doesn't really matter to train the model, we can stop the training and just produce the new hyperparameters. So for that, we actually we have like some sort of the algorithms in early stopping, and some of them we
medium stopping rules what we use.
Yeah, like medium stopping rule. So we're trying to adopt this medium stopping rule in Katib, and I think this can be really important if you run your hyperparameter tuning job in NLP, and this can help a lot of your time resources and cost
All right.
resources.
Yeah, well, we've just been playing around with the trial budgets, like limiting the time and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But we'll look into that as well. Thanks a bunch.
There you go. Collaboration at its best, you know?
Yep.
Good
That's
stuff.
how. Yep.
Yo, I have a question from a product management standpoint, looking strategically at Kubeflow. When David and Jeremy kind of put the community together, they talked about having a composable framework for end-to-end workflows. And we see a lot of benefits, you know, Charles, picking up kind of on your thread about being able to take your best tuned model and then serve it quickly. But I'm wondering, Forrest, if we'll start back with you. We were supposed to only go 45 minutes. I think it's okay if we go a little bit longer. We'll go through the crowd, all the speakers one more time. You can talk and summarize any way you want. This was kind of my question is, you know, do you see the values of both working with the components individually, or do you also see that having this end-to-end life cycle where you can go from one to another easily and get to a served model, is that also a value in your use cases? First, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, when you posit it sort of as an either or, and sometimes there's an implicit assumption in some approaches to architecture, you know, that integration, you know, can have a lower level of effort. I sort of don't necessarily, you know, think that's, you know, a given. I actually think that, you know, componentized architecture with, again, I think I, you know, sort of mentioned before, with very well-defined, you know, APIs can actually give you, you know, the ability to build end-to-end systems in a highly composable way faster than standing up a gigantic barn. And I think Kubeflow, certainly the early, you know, iterations of it were definitely, you know, a shining example of the latter, where you want to stand the barn up as a single piece, but because you have this, you know, this very large piece of infrastructure, debugging the things that go wrong for your particular cases actually turns out to be more of a challenge, because a lot of times the bugs are buried deep inside this very large edifice, excuse me. Whereas in a more modular, composable approach, you find that it's a shallower view to trying to debug the issues you're running into. And I definitely think, you know, sort of the answer to your main question is absolutely much more leaning towards you know, a highly composable approach, highly modular, with components that work well in a larger MLOps ecosystem.
Got it. Yeah. So both. No.
Oh, and then, you know, right. Well, yeah. And then that, you know, that opens up, you know, the ability for companies like Aricto to have, you know, a complete, you know, turnkey end-to-end, here's our thing. You know, that's just so the way I see it going is you have an ecosystem of all these various components that, you know, that in theory sort of play well together. And then you can have various companies and service and product offerings that bring those together in unified product offerings. And, you know, I mean, there's a whole other, you know, sort of, sort of webinar, you know, conference discussion, you know, we can have around how that looks in terms of, you know, companies that simply, you know, add value is, you know, at the integration and service level versus ones that have a core component that they've contributed and then also want to be able to offer that as an end-to-end offering.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is very important for the users to provide feedback to the community as we look at where Kubeflow goes, even as we go to, let's say we're at Kubeflow 1.4 coming on now, as we go to Kubeflow 2.0, what does Kubeflow 2.0 look like? And if there are breaking changes or other things that will happen as we make that strategic direction, do we loosely continue our integrated world, or, you know, do we let things break apart and go on their own direction somewhat? So great.
Breaking changes are fine for major releases as long as they're not like crazy. I mean, that's. I mean, I think I don't know if anyone would disagree with this or if it's a point of agreement. I mean, I think your major versions by definition are going to make major changes that are going to require some toil on the part of upgrading, right? I mean, it's beautiful to imagine a seamless upgrade in major version, but I think the problem is when those breaking changes just get out of hand. It's a problem of a breaking point. No pun intended.
Yep, I agree 100%. I know Andre is diligently working towards Katib stable version. Maybe we'll call that 1.0. And, other components may be a little bit further ahead. So, it's kind of this how everybody wants to be able to use the components to their maximum benefit.
Yeah, because just to add this, I think it's very important that we follow the same way as Kubernetes is doing, and this is why we really want to push component to the V1 version as stable as possible. And this is why, since we're making the continuous changes in the Katib PPI, currently we don't have the V1 version, but the next version will definitely, this is our next goal.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's a challenge with all the new functionality and everything that you learn. Now, David, you've gone through a few versions of Kubeflow and supported customers. What's your view on kind of how people want to use Kubeflow in your organization? Is it single components or multiple components, or what's kind of the take on that from your perspective, David?
If I look from each individual team's perspective, that the answer will be depends. One of the teams certainly really just want everything in one cohesive component, and they just want to put the Kubeflow in place and then work on it. That's about it. And my last team that I was talking about on that Darwin Tree of Life project, they only care about the Kubeflow pipeline. So they only use that one single component, nothing else. So it's a wide variety of the user requirements from the different perspectives. From my point of view, if I can look at this, look at the answer for your question, my thinking is that it's not an answer of either or. It's more of two different levels of the requirements. First of all, you have to have the well-defined APIs. Each individual components needs to be independent and composable. And on top of that, those components will have to work cohesively together, so form a complete smooth end-to-end platform. I think that Aricto is doing a pretty good job in this space. That it's helping users, for example, helping users in their journey, for example, from the Jupyter Notebook to the pipeline and to the hyperparameter tuning, and with the tools that guiding people almost effortlessly to move from one to the other. That's really helpful.
It's interesting because the survey comes back and it's always shown us that the Kubeflow pipelines is the most popular, and then the notebooks, and then the other ones are gaining in popularity as we go. And there are a lot of people that say, hey, I just use Kubeflow pipelines, right? To your point. But I think that people that are building a platform, and maybe some of the other folks can chime in here as we close this out, is that, often you're supporting multiple groups like David is, right? And so where are you going to invest if you need to have both those things? Like sometimes I'm only going to use Kubeflow pipelines. Maybe I just need serving, but other times I need the whole lifecycle chain. And I think Kubeflow as a platform, as David Aronchek and as Jeremy laid it out almost 3.5 years ago, right, has really been a pretty good vision. And I'm interested, as we close out here in the last 10 minutes, if folks could kind of chime in, just either raise your hand or jump in as you want, and make your final comments, if that makes sense.
All right. I think for me, we do a lot of consulting in this space, and I think the modularity of the components is really helpful, because you go to some customers, the level of maturity doesn't involve them using Kubeflow pipeline. They're only data scientists using notebook and stuff like that. So I don't want to like throw a lot of things in the toolbox to them because you create a lot more confusion. So one of the things we've done in the past is like we'll work with them based on where they are, and as they evolve, we can start adding all these components. So like we, in some cases, we've created like Kubeflow for data scientists, where all they do is Jupyter notebooks and stuff like that. And we have some cases where we have a customer where they're doing a lot of optimization. So we'll add notebook with Katib components, and with the way the manifest is structured right now, you can basically pick and select. And once the model is ready, one of the things we do in between is to like once we build the models, you want to serve it. So we have KF7 isolated on its own, and it's in production. You don't have the KFP pipelines and everything around it. So the modularity is really good, and you can always bring everything together if you think you have a team that needs everything. But having that kind of isolation, I think it's really helpful, especially for different teams, because let's face it, all these things we're talking about, it's complex in real life. And if you try to like just put it on a team to like do everything, sometimes maybe you're working on notebook and pipeline is failing, or you're doing things with Katib and notebook is failing. You tend to worry about all these other things that you don't want to bring into the mix. So that's something I've seen from doing stuff around this.
Right, and I think as far as coming from as my perspective from someone, and I've been someone, and my team has been mostly using pipelines, and pipeline has got all the modules and components to it, right? You got your first component is data preprocessing and then moving ahead. I feel modularity gets important for the kind of use cases we do, because that way you have better control over things, better control over individual moving parts, right? Some of or one or the other things could break, right? So, and I think when you're doing custom use cases, right, not the common ones, right, when you're doing actually like a proper problem solving, right, which involves you to indulge in every component of the aspect, I think modularity plays a good role when you are actually doing something custom, right? Like you are doing something that's not ready off the shelf right away. So I think their modularity does help for users like me and the team I work with. So yeah, I'd certainly say modularity is important, and I'd like to definitely have some flavor of it, if not some major change, but some flavor of modularity would be good.
So is that what we're talking about? So basically, the TFX components are there, and they're you can pull those in. Are we able to do that with Mini KF as well? Write components, store it on the web somewhere, and then like an open source community can like pull pre-built components.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a goal there to have some form of way to share information. I know different products and extensions are doing that, but that's another good point, right? Is portability is a big part of it. I think if I drive back just to where this session, both with Katib and the training operators, one of the things we were a little light on this session was talking about the distributed training operators. I know we only have 5 minutes left, but is there, if I could, Jovan, drive back towards that kind of topic, any comments from the folks on the team? You know, I've seen some of the stuff that Joshin has brought in with the Volcano and the gang scheduling and the Byte PS and the Light GBM and tremendous performance improvements. I'm just wondering from the team here that uses these types of training operators, is there something that is either missing, or operationally is it challenging, or is there just use cases that you have that need these training operators optimized in some way?
Josh, I had a question regarding that. So say like I'm getting into a new project, and it could be any machine learning model. But say it's like reinforcement learning, for example. I have a particular thing in financial forecasting, and I'd like to use reinforcement learning. If I wanted to find a reinforcement learning pipeline, say on the web, does that exist already, or is it? Can I import a TFX component? I think TFX does have reinforcement components. can I get a TFX component and put it into minikf and have like a like a RF algo, like just already ready to go?
There is a TFX example already, a tutorial. It's, I think, the Chicago taxi cab example. And yeah, it uses a lot of those libraries. So it might give you some way to, and I'm sure that runs also on Google Colab and a few other places. So I think that is a popular, I don't know if people have seen other ones besides that, but I've seen people turn that up fairly quickly. Any other comments from the group here?
Yeah, especially like we want to hear like about the maybe something is missing, and Josh mentioned before. And integration with the FX, I think it can be interesting. I know that we're using like RL in us algorithm, but this is like something different. But just follow up about reinforcement learning. So do you want to be like your part of MLOps should be just run this algorithm, or how do you want to use this reinforcement learning in Kubeflow? So what is your like use case?
Sure. So Superior Data Science is a consulting company, and one of the things it caters to is the financial industry. And one of the things we wanted to serve was a forecast. And so if you sell to a private equity company, right, and this is real estate, basically the environment of the reinforcement learning would be just basic like ledgers, ledgers holding these properties and things. And then reinforcement learning, it grows rewards from entropy. And it would have an agent searching for the best decisions. And ultimately, the equity, the most equity it increases, it just like playing those video games. Have you seen those Atari video games where the reinforcement learning agent tries to increase the score?
Yep.
So just similarly, this reinforcement learning agent would find the most amount of equity, and this would be served as a forecasting example to financial industries for their work. So this would be like a consulting engagement. So that would be the use case.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. I don't know, we can maybe try to see how like distributed training can help us with this implementation. Yeah, because currently we have like really good presentation previously about like new pedal support and new like DGL, which is like different distributed strategy. But definitely, if you don't mind, just please create an issue and we can see how we can integrate it in Kubeflow.
Sure, and I'll help put that example on your open source memory, wherever that is, and then people can just pull it whenever they need it. So
that will be great. Thanks so much. Yep.
Okay, I think we're about at time, and my dog is barking, so I think that's pretty good for this session.
Well timed. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Had a good time speaking with all of you.
Yep. Same here.
Thank you so much. And by the way,
I appreciate everybody making the time. All the folks made time to give this information. I think the collaboration is wonderful, and I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Exactly. Thank you. Just a last comment from my side. If you have like time, and because we don't have enough time to discuss everything, and if you want, please update the documentation that Josh shared with you about the user panel. And maybe if we do not discuss any questions or any sort of the trade-offs that training operators for Katib does not support, please add it there and we can follow up with the issue. Does it sound good to you?
Sounds good.
Yep. Great.